Okay, it looks like everybody's here and we're ready to start.
Great, great. Thanks so much, Heather, for organizing this. To the folks who are joining us today, thanks so much, and thanks to our kids for making this event possible. It's a very strange year this year. We're moving everything virtually, so thanks to our kids for pivoting and giving families an opportunity to learn a bit more about the wonderful schools that we have in Toronto and across the country. My name is Dave McBride. I'm the Vice Principal of Enrollment Management here at Upper Canada College. If you're here, I hope you know a little bit about us. We're an SK-12 IB all-boys school founded in 1829, located in Midtown Toronto. I have the great pleasure today of moderating our discussion, which means I'm going to be asking some questions, and I've got three panelists who are going to give you straight and great answers about UCC and about the UCC experience. I'm joined by one of our graduates today, Matt Jagdea, who's on from Abu Dhabi, where he's going to university, and as well as two of my favorite parents, and I swear, Maggie and Mary Lee, I do not say that with every parent, but two of my favorite parents at UCC, Mary Lee and Maggie. So I'm going to ask a number of questions to our panelists. We will maybe have some time at the end for questions from the audience. So we're going to get going. So I'm going to start with Matt, class of 2017. Matt, just tell us a little bit about yourself. How long were you at UCC, and tell us a bit about what you're doing now.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the intro, Dave. So my name is Matt. I graduated, as Dave mentioned, in the class of 2017. So I believe it's been 3 going on 4 years since I was at the college. I'm currently studying mechanical and aerospace engineering at the New York University Abu Dhabi campus. So I do find myself out here in the Middle East in Abu Dhabi for the last 3 years, and I've had a really great time, finishing up my university experience now in my final year. Having the ability to come to our campus here, even in the midst of the coronavirus. So that's where I'm at academically. I was born and raised in Toronto, and I started attending UCC in year 7. So I did 6 years, I believe, if my math is correct, at UCC from grade 7 through to IB2. I was, I was involved in a number of different things at UCC. Athletics, extracurricular events. I was on the soccer team, the cricket team. I was doing, Model United Nations and a lot of different things. And so I'm really grateful for my time there. And I'd love to sort of share some of my experiences with all the people here.
Matt, just one other quick question. So you're going to be graduating this year from NYU Abu Dhabi. What are your goals? What are your goals down the road? What are the plans for you?
Yeah, so I'm kind of going through that process right now with applications for full-time positions. I think I've turned my focus to full-time employment rather than grad school, at least for the moment being. So I found myself applying to opportunities both back home in Toronto and in Canada, but also here in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, which is really interesting and something that I never thought that would be an option for me. So I'm applying to a variety of different things. I'm looking at engineering, things in aerospace. But I'm also taking a look at sort of doing something business related. So I've been applying to a lot of consulting and investment banking. So I kind of have a variety of different things that are going on in also 2 different places. So it's certainly an exciting but busy time for me in terms of my prospects. So that's what I think where I'm at right now.
I'm pretty confident that someone's going to get very lucky to hire you. So. Let's turn to our UCC parents, Mary Lee and Maggie. I'm just wondering if each of you could just tell us a little bit about you and about your family, and well, I know one of you has 2 sons here, so and your sons who are at UCC. I don't know, Mary Lee, how about you?
Sure.
Mary Lee going first?
Yeah, why not? My name's Mary Lee Rosetta. And my son, Michael, is in year 5 this year. We joined the UCC family in senior kindergarten. As soon as my husband and I had our son, it was like, where's he going to go to school? And it's like, we want him to go to Upper Canada College. And we're lucky because he's able to walk to school, which is fun for him because he can actually walk on his own this year. And we joined the family back in 2015, and it's just been a wonderful experience all the way through. And as I said, we just have the one son, but we are having the best time on watching him grow up and being part of this community.
Right. Maggie?
Yes, thanks, Dave and Mary Lee. My name is Maggie Mock, and I have two boys at UCC. Similar to Mary Lee's son, Michael, both my boys started at UCC from SK, and they are one in year 3 now, and the other one is in year 7. We have been having the best experience ever for all these years at UCC, and I'm so happy that they're now at school. They're back to school, and my boys are super excited that they're back on campus, and I have my life back, and I can start learning how to talk but not yelling at home.
Oh, Maggie, you're not a yeller. Come on. I see you at drop off. The boys need a little bit of direction. Yeah.
Talk to my boys, they'll tell you otherwise.
Okay. All right. Just so great to have both of you. And I'll also, they're both very modest, but Mary Lee and Maggie are super volunteers here at UCC, and we're very fortunate to have great volunteers, and they are two of the best that we have here. Matt, I'm gonna swing back to you. I know you've been gone for a little while from UCC, but what did you appreciate most about UCC during your time here? And I'm wondering, you've been on the other side of the world now. Has your perspective changed on your time at UCC now that you've been away?
Yeah, I think for me, the number one thing above all, I think during my 6 years at UCC was definitely sort of the friendships and relationships I made at the college. Above everything else, that has been the thing that, during that time I realized was, extremely important to me and very valuable to me. But even, the last 3.5 or so years after being at the college, halfway around the world, I still maintain those very strong connections with my friends, with some of my closest confidants, with my classmates, with people in different years. So I think, if I had to list one thing, it would be my friends. Not only did, obviously I go to class with them and go to school with them from, 7:30 sometimes in the morning to, 6 p.m. at night after, soccer practice or whatever. But it was those guys that, I would go out with on the weekends and hang out, and, go do different things in the city. Hang out after school, get engaged with a bunch of different extracurriculars, traveled with some of them. They have really been, sort of the rock and the foundation in my life, to be quite honest, in the last, 6 plus 3, I guess, so 9 years. They've been my closest friends, the only real friends that I have back from my high school, or even from my sort of like before university days, are my UCC friends. And I made such a strong connection with them, again, just spending so much time with them, but also sort of the conversations I'd have with them and how much they mean to me now. Living around the world, living halfway around the world has its challenges, in the sense that the thing that you give up when you leave is definitely your support system. And it's really great for me to realize that I can be gone from home for, 9 months of the year, and then come back and my friends are still the same. It's as if I didn't leave. And it's always a super welcoming, environment for me to come back, even though, they've grown for 9 months, I've grown for 9 months independent of my friends, particularly when we're used to every single day, every class, every practice. And the really good thing is that it's the same values that we kind of hold amongst each other of really positivity, community service, all of these really great things that I think UCC instilled in us. And, I don't think that I would ever really make better friends than the ones that I have at the college. I can see those as being friends for life, people that I look up to for inspiration, people I go to for advice, people I go to in hard times. So I think, above all, it for me is definitely the camaraderie amongst my peers. And I can even say that I'd extend that to some of my teachers that I had there at the time. There's a number of them that I had very close relationships with through different, avenues, whether it be university counseling or, doing extracurriculars. So I think definitely the thing that I appreciated the most is sort of that camaraderie, that friendship, those relationships that I built during my time there.
Matt, I think it's such a great point, because in the admissions process, I meet a number of old boys, so UCC alum, and I do not have any friends from when I was in high school, and I was pretty involved, and I'm old, I know, but I was involved in my high school, but I have no friends. Almost every old boy that I meet talks about his best friend is the guy he met on day one at UCC, and I'm just blown away by that. So thank you. Those are great observations, buddy. Mary Lee and Maggie, I'm wondering if you can think back to the admissions process, and why did your family choose UCC? We have a lot of families considering a lot of schools. Why did your families choose UCC back a number of years ago?
Well, the admissions process was actually very smooth for us because they were little. He was in SK and it was super fun. And they went into the class and they had their observed play date. And I know that it's quite different when you're in the older grades. You actually have to write a test and things like that. But it was great to come into the school and to meet the admissions team and I felt that not only were we going to be interviewed, but they were happy to speak to us about the school and the community and what was happening at UCC. And it was an easy process and a good process. And I think the hardest part of the process, and this would be anywhere, is waiting to find out if you're in or not. But that was a highly exciting moment because they come to the door and welcome you to the school on the morning that admissions go out. And I'm not sure how that's going to work with COVID, but anyway, it was an easy decision for us to choose UCC. I mean, from our point of view, it's the greatest school in Canada, and we didn't actually apply anywhere else because it was just like, this is where we want to go. So that was our experience. And again, the team was so lovely to work with and made it so accessible if we had any questions. And again, it was senior kindergarten, so it's a bit different, I think, for the older ones, but that was our experience.
I totally agree with Mary Lee. We had a great experience with the application process. And I still remember it was David who came to our house to bring us the package from my older son, and I was so excited. But going back to why we chose UCC is unlike Mary Lee, who they already set an eye on UCC, at our time, I actually went to many different schools. I don't know how many you guys did, but I did many, okay? But I still remember the moment, the main reason why I chose UC was a couple of them. And the one main one was during the open house. I hope you guys would have the ability to come to the school. When I came to the open house, that day, it was an 11-year-old boy who led us through the open house process. I was talking to him all the way through. Like now, I kept talking, kept asking him questions. He was like unbeatable. He was polite, very well presented, confident, and every single question he answered me like, oh my God, like a high school kid. And he was 11 years old. And most importantly, I was very, very, when I was looking at him, I was very impressed by his demeanor. He was nice and kind. He held the doors, opened the door for us like a gentleman. And then I was looking at mine. He was still little kids. I'm like, oh my God, I want him to be able to open the door for me, but not me holding the door for him one day. So I think that was one of the reasons. And the second reason was, I still remember when I was at the open house, I talked to different teachers. There was this teacher now retired now, but I have to tell you guys, that guy was the star of that day. I walked up to him, everybody talked to him, and I listened to him. His name was Don Coasso. He graduated now. That day, he told me something very impressive. He said, at UCC, we take care of the boys, be it on their up days or their down days. When they're good boys or when they're silly, we take care of them. And then he gave some examples. I forgot what it was, but that was the message. And I have to tell you all, I think UCC did keep their promise. I have two boys, and they have the up days, and of course they have their silly days. And on the silly days, the school are there for them, taking care of them and teach them the right thing, the right values. And I think like the other day, I bumped into Don's wife, and I didn't know that was his wife. I said, do you know about this guy? Are you related to him because you have the same last name? And I'm like, I'm a fan of him. And then he said, oh, I'm his wife. So I just want to share this story as I think we made the right choice. And I always have been telling all our friends, I think I've made one of the very best choice for my boys. Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie. Unfortunately, because of COVID and the situation this year, we won't be having an open house, so you won't get a chance to experience it the same way that Maggie did when she was looking. But we're trying to find different ways to engage, and this will be one of them. I'm just going to stick with Mary Lee and Maggie for another question, though. And you in some respects you already touched on this, but in what way would you say has the college lived up to your expectation? I think you both have had a lot of expectations going in. How have we lived up to your expectations? And then the second part of that question is, have there been some surprises for you, some things that you didn't really know coming in that you found now?
Well, arriving at the school and watching this little 5-year-old blossom into a real young man now has been incredible to watch. The process has been amazing. And I think the biggest surprise, and I don't know why I was surprised, but is how welcoming everybody was, and the parents. I think there's always this preconception for private schools, whatever school it is, that perhaps you might come across some people who aren't quite friendly or welcoming. And it's been an incredible experience, not only for the kids who are there and watching them make new friendships and these forever friendships, and welcome new kids into their classes as they go through the years, and there's entry years. But the parents are all so engaged. And I think that's been the biggest surprise at just how everybody wants the best for their son and wants to make the community better and to make it feel like it should be, in the sense that it takes a village to raise a child, and the community at Upper Canada feels like that. It's supportive. And I have never found any sort of negative blowback from anybody at the school, be it a parent or faculty or anyone who works there. And the kids are great. And a nod to admissions, you do a great job at bringing in great groups of kids that all form these incredible friendships. Michael is 10 now. I mean, he was 5 when he started, and just seeing how the depth of those friendships that he's made over the years. And in grade 3, they had a new class come in, and this year in grade 5, we have a new class that's come in, and they're already friends with the new boys who've come in. And with COVID, it's smaller classes. There's only 15 of them, but half of them are new. And it's just like, they don't miss a beat. The faculty, the teachers are incredible. The teachers make all the difference in the world. And you hear from other friends and family about situations with teachers and kids. I've never had one negative experience with any teacher at the prep, at any grade level, for any topic. And they're always open and want, they encourage parent support, and to go into the school and volunteer has always been a welcoming experience. So I think that the schools exceeded my expectations. And again, for Michael, he couldn't be happier.
So to add on to what Mary Lee said, I think I totally agree with the very welcoming parents group. I have a lot of friends at school now, like Mary Lee is a very good friend of mine. And also the teachers are awesome. And I will add to that is give you an example. For parents, if you have more than one son, you will know that they are very different by nature, and they could be varied. I have two different sons. My older one, you will see him, he'll be reading if you let him 10 hours a day. But if you ask him go out and do anything active, he'll be like, no, I'm not even going out. Meanwhile, my younger one, he loves sports, anything. He loves to ride bike, running around, everything. And as parents, you would worry, they're so different. If I put them to the same school, how would that be? At UCC, this is a place where you should go, because they basically have everything for everyone. As strange as my older boy, who likes only reading and whatever, more quiet stuff, like 2 years ago when he was in grade 4 and 5, the teachers let him start his own club. So from grade 5, he started an origami club. So he's been doing origami with different friends. And the teachers allowed him to book a room during recess, even buy him papers and books for him to do origamis with the other students. And this also shows you how caring the teachers are. Then the next year, he fell in love with D&D. Again, the teachers let him start at a D&D club. Him and a group of boys renting different rooms every day after lunchtime and play D&D. Now go to my active one. Since we got back to school after the lockdown, he has been so happy every day. Day 1, Mommy, I made a new friend. He was a new boy. Day 2, I made another new friend. And then every day there's a new friend, and he's been sharing with me. While you maybe wonder, what are they doing during the lockdown? The school actually did very well. They break down the whole school campus into different 16 areas and let the boys in the different cohort to have different games to play during the recess. So some days I will hear my younger ones telling me, I've been playing soccer. Next day he'll be playing four square, a game that the boys play. So I would say go back to what David's question is. The school did really live up to our expectation and did more to what we expect. Thanks, Dave.
Great, thank you both. Matt, I know you're not living in Toronto anymore, but Toronto's got a lot of great schools. We're happy that you chose us many years ago. But what in your experience, without speaking negatively of any other schools, what do you think really differentiates from your perspective, differentiates UCC from other schools in the city?
Yeah, of course. So I think, and also I think my answers are going to be in the sense that like I obviously haven't attended other schools, so this is just from my perspective as a student and having some friends at some other schools. But I think I'd like to highlight sort of three main things, and some of these are going to be echoing some of the statements made by Maggie and Mary Lee. But I think one of them is really about academic rigor. UCC it's a challenging school once you get up to the sort of higher grades, but it sets you up very well for your performance after high school. And I found myself coming to university and being extremely prepared, being ready for the first year classes, being ready with the commitments that are expected from me as a university student. And I think part of that is through doing the International Baccalaureate program, but also part of that is sort of also the sort of standards that UCC holds itself to academically, which, looking back, I'm actually extremely thankful for. And I think it set me up extremely well, to be successful in university. So I think that's sort of one area. And I think the second one is really about the people that work there. And I think this was alluded to already by both Maggie and Mary Lee, but the teachers I had are honestly some of the most impactful people I've had in my life. And I remember having a conversation with my parents actually over this summer about it, and discussing how teachers really do shape your development. My mother is a teacher at kindergarten at a public school in Toronto, and we were kind of contrasting sort of the effect that a high school teacher has versus let's say a kindergarten teacher, and really recounting some of our favorite teachers that I encountered and my parents encountered in the parent-teacher interviews. And I really noticed that I could name a couple of teachers that really had a profound impact on my life in a number of different areas, like teaching me personal values, teaching me how to be a good time manager, teaching me how to be a good person and how to be a good friend. The teachers that I had through my entire time, 1 year at the prep, and also I think it's 5 years at the upper school. Some really great people that I consider friends now, actually. I catch up with some of my teachers every now and then. Some that have had a huge impact on my life, and I can thank a lot of them for sort of the successes that I think I've had in my life to this point through university. The staff there are the reason that I'm out here in Abu Dhabi doing school, because they sort of identified me as a particularly good fit for this university. And I'm very grateful for them for that. And so it really created an environment where I was actually looking forward to coming to school. I already talked about sort of my peers and my friends, and so having the friends that are there that are really great, and also having the teachers, it creates an extremely welcoming environment for a student. And honestly, I'd wake up at 6 a.m. every day excited to go to school, because that's the time I had to wake up to catch the TTC to get to school on time. But I loved it. I spent more time at UCC, I think, in the week than I did at home, because I would spend most days more than 12 hours at UCC. And I really loved every single minute of it. And I think it extends from teachers to also some of the other staff that are there. They're extremely supportive, extremely accommodating. Everyone there is always really there to help you as a student. And I think that's really a good point. And I like that quote that Maggie had mentioned about Don Kawaso, who was someone that had a really great impact on me when he was there at the college. And I do think that they are there for you in the best moments and the worst moments. And then the third thing very quickly is, I think, just about how well-rounded the college is, in the sense that, we have academics, we have sports, we have extracurriculars, and I think that creates a really cool triangle in terms of things that you have on offer at high school. And not only do we have them, or, have them at a good, rate or a good level, we actually excel at all of them. We are extremely competitive in all the sports leagues that we play in. We're extremely competitive in, Model UN, debating, all the different extracurricular things. We're consistently the top school in Canada, and even in North America for, Model UN when I was there back in my 12th year. And then obviously academics I spoke about as well. And I think it's extremely unique that you find yourself in a position where you have access to all of them, but also access to an extremely high level. So if you do have a son like Maggie, that's super introverted, really likes reading and super into one particular niche, you can get that one particular experience at a very deep level. And if you're someone like me who likes to do a bunch of different things, sports, science, but also looking at the social sciences, my extracurriculars, I can also do all of those at the same time at also a very deep and enriched level. And I think that's something that, I kind of took for granted, but I realized, coming out of UCC, speaking with peers that I had at other schools, that the opportunities afforded them just weren't at the same level. And I think that I'm really grateful for UCC for giving us those opportunities and at such a high level. And I think that really does differentiate the college, I think, from a lot of the other private institutions that are in Toronto and in Canada as a whole.
That's great. Thanks, Matt. Great observations. And I think that community piece is actually sort of all three of you talked about that, and I think it's one of the things that families often are most surprised by about the depth of the relationships here, how actually nice everybody is at this place. I don't think it's necessarily the perception people who've never been here have, but you've all sort of touched on that. Maggie and Mary Lee, sort of back to you. Your boys are still young. They're not quite as old as Matt yet, but what's the biggest impact UCC's had on your son? Maggie, in your case, both sons. But what's the biggest impact UCC's had that you see right now for your boys?
The biggest observation I've noticed over especially the last 2 or 3 years is the incredible sense of independence, and he has a quiet confidence that he is good where he is at. He goes into the school, he's happy, he knows where he's at, he knows he has the support, he knows the teachers know him. It's an incredibly supportive community. And to see the confidence, and as Maggie had mentioned, at the open house, like, he's very polite. The teachers, are big on, and I don't want to say like manners, but conduct. And I think that's important. I do. I think that that carries through all the way through your life. My mom always said, if you have good manners, you can go anywhere in life. And they learn at a very young age that how to act and how to be independent and how to be confident. And I think that's the biggest observation that I can give you over the last 5 years. And he's happy.
Good. Maggie, what's the biggest impact?
I think there will be a couple of things. As you can tell, I have 2 boys and I love my boys. So when I can brag about them, I will have a lot of good work. But when I think back on how they shape them at UCC versus what I have done at home, I think I would most appreciate at school. They raised both my boys to become the risk takers, to have the courage. And which is very important, because I'll give you an example. There are the things that at home I may not be able to teach them to do. Like at UCC, through learning in class, the teacher interactions or the staff interactions, and also at UCC, we have the outdoor campus at Norfolk, where the boys right now, they cannot, but before then, they would take the boys to do different outdoor activities, and from the activities and through playing and interacting with the other boys, they teach them to be very courageous and become a risk takers. And the other thing I really appreciate is like, I think like what Matt said before, is the teachers giving them to have a very good sense of what is right and wrong, a very good sense of value. I can tell you with example with my boys, especially with my older one, whatever he said, I can always trust him. Like during the lockdown, he was doing his all learning by himself online. I don't need to check on him. Maybe I'm lazy or whatever, but I don't need to check on him. When he tells me that he's studying, when he walks into the room, turn on the computer, I know he's studying. He will come back and tell me some days, Mom, you can trust me. And I don't need to check on any of his exam or test schedule, none of his homework, nothing. And when he's doing it, when he promised me something, he promised me and he would do it. And I think this is part of it, is how the teachers has been shaping them, teaching them what is right and wrong. And I still remember, like my youngest son at grade 1 or grade 2, who came home and told me the experience of being a bystander and an upstander, and how you should be being responsible when nobody is looking at you, you have to do the right thing. And those are the values the teachers shape them, teach them when they are young, and which is very, very important. And like my older boy, now even though he's turning 12, he will still come home, tell me every day when we chat, tell me the tiniest, smallest detail at school, like at recess or playtime with the boys, so I can trust him. And which is what I think as parents I most appreciate about. I don't need to worry. And give you, I know I talk a lot, but the final last bit is not bragging about it, but at school, like what Matt said, because we have such a very good, rigorous program on academic. An example, my older son, he competed in math. I never push him, I never need to do anything. He just loved math and reading, he do his own questions. At grade 5, he won the #1 award in Canada doing the Waterloo grade 7 math contest. And I did nothing, believe it or not. It's the teachers. The teachers identified that he loves math. They took him into an extension program. Sometimes Kyle, my oldest son, will come home and tell me about the extension, but most of the time I'm cooking or doing something else, and I'll just, oh, fine, good, without knowing what it is. But then it's the teachers. And since grade 5, grade 6, and grade 7, even now, they have been teaching him, coaching him, giving him the extensions and helping him. And so I really appreciate as the parents of what the school has been doing, from both the values, the norm side, setting the right path, and also teaching them on the academic side. Thanks, Dave.
Great. Mary Lee and Meg, I'm going to stay with you. You're on this call today, you're speaking. So if we had your boys on the call right now, what would the boys, if I asked them to say something about UCC, what would your boys say about UCC?
Well, I actually did ask him that, if he had any comments that he'd like to share about the school. And my son is a young man of very few words, but he told me that he thinks school is fun, and he loves getting to school. And again, Maggie mentioned Norval. We can't be there this year, but they have come to the campus, and Norval has made it's sort of all encompassing. So he would say it's fun. He loves school. And, you know, if your kid loves school, they can do anything with whatever they are interested in. And just as Maggie had pointed out, so that I'll go with that.
Okay, Maggie.
I did the same thing. I asked my boys last night, what would you say if I asked you about UCC? I think #1 thing came out, of course, it's fun. They love school. And second is, I find it pretty interesting is, I'm a UCC boy. They just say, I'm a UCC boy. So I asked them what it is. I think it's the school spirits. It's deep down in them. They feel that they're the UCC boy. They take the pride as being a UCC boy, and they feel they should do well. And well, the thought just sticks in my mind. But I think both of them, like what Mary Lee said, they're very happy to be back to school. And oh, I remember now. So my older boy, for instance, I sometimes joke with him, would you like to go to university early if you can, since you're so into reading and all the academics? And my older one will, yeah, sure. But guess what? Even if I got in, I want to stay for UCC until I'm just 13 years. So I asked him, when you get to university, last year, what we want to do, staying at school? He said, I want to be there, enjoy my time with my friends and my teachers. I just want to be there. So that you can tell how happy he is. And I think that is very, very important to me.
Great. Matt, what do you think families would find most surprising about UCC? They don't know anything about the school. What would surprise them the most?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And I kind of like to go back to the values of community, and you know, I think we've talked a lot about community in this chat, but I think I'd like to go back there one more and maybe take another angle at it. But I think a lot of the times these, you know, institutions such as UCC or some of the other private schools in Toronto, it can present the image of, you know, your boy shows up at 8 a.m. and he leaves at 4:30, and you know, at school he's there to learn, and you know, he does a couple extracurriculars, and then you know, that's it, and you get put through the machine, and then you graduate and you go to a really good university, you get a really good job, and then you know, hopefully you give back if you're an alumni, and that's sort of the progression of a student through these private institutions. But I really think that at UCC it was completely different, and I think this is something that I didn't necessarily anticipate when I was back in grade 6 going into grade 7, and I think it elevated as I went from year 7 all the way up to IB2 or grade 12 at the end. And I think we've talked about a lot of different things here on community, you know, the teachers, you know, I've talked about some of my peers, But honestly, I think, and Maggie and Mary Lee both mentioned it, but going to school was fun. It was a place that I wanted to be all the time because of my friends, because of all the things that were going on. It was among the most fun years of my life. Like the boys that I was with were, you know, the people that I would die for. We would have some really great moments of like spirit at you know, sporting events on campus, going to Winterfest and watching the hockey team play, or going to A Day, and just like rallying with all of my friends and watching the football team. That was something that, you know, we would do religiously, and I think that community was built up, you know, because of your proximity with your friends and your peers. You know, you go through the good times and also the bad times with them. And I'd like to kind of go back to that idea as well, and talk about sort of like individualities and sort of how the college and you know, teachers and staff and also our friends really propped us up. I had a lot of bad days at UCC. I had days where I did poorly on tests. I had days where I was doing, you know, something in, you know, whatever, my friendships or other relationships wasn't going great. I just had bad days because, you know, it was raining outside. And every time, the one thing that stayed consistent was that, you know, every time I went to school, my spirits were lifted. It was as if a burden was taken off my shoulders. I wanted to wake up. I wanted to get to school. Sometimes I wanted to get away from my parents and from my siblings. And I think school was the escape. And it's just that, like, they were there for me at all the time, like at every moment. Some of those teachers there would be able to notice when you're walking through the hallway and you have the slightest of slow in your pace, or, you know, your back is slightly hunched forward or something. And they'd say, you know, how's it going today, Matt? Like, is everything all right? Or even call you into their office and say, you know, what's going on? You seem a little off. Sometimes everything was great. It was just, you know, whatever, an anomaly. But sometimes it was really great to hear that as well, and to sort of open up to someone. And I think that's something that, you know, you don't necessarily get at a lot of different schools, especially at that young age of, you know, early years of high school, middle school. So for those things, I'm really grateful. And you know, it's a number of different teachers. My friends were really good at this thing. And I think, you know, across the board, the community, you know, parents that come back and volunteer. I think that's a really big thing. My parents love volunteering at UCC. They go every A Day. They're really sad when they couldn't go this year because of, you know, cancellations and stuff. But just the entire community and atmosphere around the college is really an amazing thing. Something that I'm still a part of to this day. You know, I try to give back as much as I can, but also, you know, network with other old boys and participate in class events. And, you know, I think we come together as a community very well. And it's a community that you strive in and thrive in when you're a student there. And I think that takes a number of different forms as you go through the different years and the different schools at Upper Canada College. And, you know, obviously, I think, you know, joining sports teams or, you know, clubs and all those things also contribute to those things as sort of communities within the big community. But one thing for sure is, you know, that sense of community, but also individuality that is present at Upper Canada College, I would say, is something that you don't necessarily always get. And you wouldn't necessarily expect at a school such as UCC, a big, you know, private institution, but I think I'm extremely grateful for it. And it's helped me wonders up until this point.
Great, thanks, Matt. Just a couple more questions that I have for our great panel. Mary Lee and Maggie, we have a mission, vision, and values. How would you describe the values of UCC?
Well, I think that the greatest value at UCC is having the boys become their best self. So the school, the teachers, the community, the whole experience is there to take your son, and as Maggie said, her boys are so different, as my child is different, everybody's child's different. But the whole idea and the value system at UCC is to make that kid the best they can be for who they are. And there's an incredible amount of support, I find, to get to that point. Sorry about the dogs.
And for me, I think it's caring. I've been very impressed with the school. One reason, like Dave said, why I volunteer so much. Our family, we don't live close by the campus. I live about an hour away from campus. So you can imagine every day my drive in the past 7 years. In the past 7 years, I spend almost 4 hours of driving, sometimes 6 in winter, to drive my boys to school. But why I'm still doing it? Because it's a very good place for my son. They're very happy. I'm happy. And also, I'm very touched by everyone at the school. From the SK teacher who's on mat leave now, to my year 7 teacher with my son, and the teachers who retired, the librarian, they all become our friends. Like one of the librarians who recently retired, I'm becoming a friends with her and her daughter who once taught at the school. And it's like a community, and they are so caring that I know that when I'm not around with my son during the 8 hours a day, I don't need to worry. When I drop off my son as a mom, the one thing I want to know is they're safe. Second thing, then is happy, and then third is academic, whatever. But I want to make sure they are safe and someone care for them. And this is what the school has been giving me. I know that when I'm not around, when they're silly, when they're crazy, someone is going to teach them. When they fell down, when they're sick, someone is going to handle them and take care of them. So I think that is one of the things that I most appreciate about. And when I think about UCC, when my friends ask me, why UCC? Why driving 4 hours a day? Are you crazy? Then no, because that is the place after I drop them off, I'm happy. Go back to my personal life, be me. But at the same time, I know there's someone who would care for them, love them, and take care of them as the best people as I could rely on. So yeah, go back to that.
Maggie, thanks for trusting us as a school. We appreciate it, and we know it's a challenge for families to leave their sons at a school, and thank you. It's nice to hear that. Got one last question for the three of you, and then we'll take some questions if people have them. Matt, let's imagine I think there may be a few young boys who are on this call with their parents listening. What advice would you give to a student who's just about to enter UCC?
So I think for me, and probably something I wish I kind of knew before as well, which would have been really nice, but is being open to any and all opportunities, and really searching for what you're interested in, but also not being afraid to venture into new things. And I say this because, and I mentioned that UCC has pretty much everything. And I believe that a lot of the times, just generally in life, you can get pigeonholed into particular things based on your interests, or, whether you don't think you're athletic, or whether you don't like reading, and all of these things. And you can kind of slot yourself into different, divisions, whether it be, you think that you're really interested in science and everything that you do is science related. But I would really strive for boys to really test the waters in a bunch of different things. UCC has really great people around to support you no matter what level you're at in, picking up a new language, or, learning how to debate, learning how to do, even business modeling was something that you could have done back then. So I think like trying as much as you can to break out of the box that you may have confined yourself within, and trying new things, because that's where I think personal growth comes. And I think UCC is a really great place for personal growth. And then a side thing to this, and kind of related, is really making great sort of connections and relationships with your peers. I think this will come organically anyway, but I think what's important is extending this to the staff and teachers that are there at UCC. I think a lot of the ways at school, teachers and students are looked at as sort of, two different distinct levels, as, an instructor and a pupil. But I think at UCC, a lot of the times, there's a lot of group learning in terms of you're learning from your peers, but also, the teacher coming down to the level of the student and helping you truly understand things that, are outside of the course content, but things about life, things about, things that they've learned in their life. And, having these conversations with teachers is something that was extremely valuable, that I sort of picked up on in my last year. Unfortunately, I wish I had done that before, because these people they know a lot. They've been around the block a couple of times. They've met a lot of really great students. And so they've really figured it out, and they're extremely helpful. They continue to be people that I consider mentors in my life. Like, I continually exchange emails and, even Facebook messages with some of my teachers and stuff, just to check in and ask advice. So I think, as much as possible, sort of, trying new things, exploring new options, but also making sure that you are, involving yourself in the community, making friends with teachers and your peers around you, because I think they will be instrumental to sort of your time at UCC, no matter how long or how short it is, but also sort of your years afterwards as an old boy. I think that's really important.
Thanks, Matt. Mary Lee and Maggie, so my last question to you is one that sometimes I'm asked when I'm doing interviews with families, and I'm going to ask you, what 3 words, just 3 words, would you use to describe UCC? You only got 3 words.
Transformative, supportive, and welcoming.
Good words. Okay. Maggie?
Really, you're good. Okay. I don't have something so complicated, but I would say, I think 3 words, right?
Great.
Best thing ever. The best thing ever I did.
Best thing ever.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. Best thing ever. I'm going to use that one. That's good. Listen, so I know there's some questions coming in, but I want to thank the 3 of you because you know, I joined this call about 7 minutes before we went on. We had no clue what you were going to say. I'm not sure that you could have said it any better. And I don't think any of the brochures we publish or any of the videos we shoot, I don't think that any of them say it actually as well and as honestly as the 3 of you have done. So I just want to say from the college, thank you for participating today and for your wisdom and your views, and I really appreciate that. I know that I see there's a number of questions in the chat. So I think we've said we'd go to about 6 o'clock. So I'm going to try to go through these questions. So I think maybe this is a question. Maybe I think probably Matt, you're maybe the best one to answer this because you did come sort of halfway through. But how different is the experience of a boy joining UCC in the middle of grade school instead of at JK or SK?
Yeah, I think, hopefully I can answer some or provide some insight on this. One of my very close friends also is a lifer at UCC, or sort of like an SK or survivor, I think that's what they call it. So kindergarten to IB2. So I think I can hopefully share both of our perspectives. So I joined grade 7, he joined SK. Honestly, I can tell you that obviously there's an adjustment coming in, you know, as a new boy. I didn't know anyone, I had to make friends. But by the time year 8 came and I, you know, started my first year in the upper school, all the same. It didn't feel as if I was behind, as if I was out of the culture or, you know, behind academically. I think, you know, entering in the middle school years, they do a bit of sort of pre-testing. You know, you have to do, I think it's the double SAT, which is sort of like a standardized test for students around the grade 6 level. So that does prove that you're sort of up to the academic rigor. And there's a lot of sort of, you know, orientation initiation things. So a lot of really welcoming programming with the different houses down at the prep, and in the prep thereby sort of the houses are organized in different colors and stuff. And I remember that. So who's my best friend now, basically, he was the captain of the greenhouse, and I became the new boy captain of the greenhouse as well. And so that was a really cool experience. But I honestly think that there is no difference. You're not necessarily at any disadvantage coming in the middle years versus coming in at the sort of kindergarten years. I will say, however, though, that like obviously I think, you know, coming in at the kindergarten years allows your son to be exposed to what UCC is prior to, and build that community and that network a lot earlier, even at such a younger age. However, I think in terms of, you know, how it looks like once you transition to the upper school, and even if you enter during the upper school, I really think that there is an on-ramp that's extremely quick, and by the time that's over a month, 2 months, just because of how great and welcoming the community is, you're caught up to speed extremely quickly. And I don't think that's really a concern that I had, or anything that, you know, some of my peers that entered even later than me had at all as well.
Great. Maggie and Mary Lee, I'm going to throw this one to you. We've heard about the welcoming culture and parent involvement at the school, and wonder what that looks like now, and how new families have found the transition post-COVID, or during COVID, I guess.
Yeah, I know. It has been a difficult start to the year to be welcoming new families, but we are trying our best. The Prep Parent Organization that Maggie and I are running this year with 38 other committee members, what we're trying to do is make it as best we can not on campus. So we are still involved. We're having we're this month starting next week, we're having, each cohort is having a Zoom coffee morning so that new parents can meet current parents, and then the grades that aren't entry year can see their other friends. We are having an online auction and festive marketplace this year. Association Day was online this year, and they did the best they can. And there will be special initiatives, art projects, and things like that. And we are supporting the schools best we can from afar, and making sure, like, we do a monthly birthday program where it was cupcakes or donuts last year. This year it's a prepackaged treat. So the 15th of each month, for that month, they celebrate the boys' birthdays in that month, and the kids get to stand on their desks and they sing happy birthday. And the prep parent organization supports that, and we do whatever we can. And we work towards what we can with what we have, and we're hoping, that we'll be able to get back on campus when we can, but we can only do that right now.
And then on top of everything what Mary Lee has said, the other things that both Mary Lee and I and the other volunteers in the pet parent organization do is we basically, as simple as we open up our WhatsApp line, WeChat line, phone line, whatever, and email. A lot of new parents coming in, we understand how difficult it is right now because of COVID, and you don't get to see each other in person. But what we have been offering is, if you have questions, you can always text or contact us. I've been on WhatsApp the other days with some new parents. We are chatting, and we also have some unofficial group that is different class. We'll set up our own support group. So we'll all be some days reminding each other, tomorrow is a day where you don't need to wear uniform, or the other day there are some tiny things, don't forget to bring your computer back because it's a long weekend. So we have all those, nothing big or fancy, but we have the small, the community there that will be there for you when you need. And you can always pick up your phone, text or email or call us.
Great. Matt, this one's, I'm interested in your answer to this question since you don't work for me, so I'm curious what you're going to say. Matt, congratulations on your achievements and wish you continued success. From your perspective, what are the key attributes that UCC looks for in a candidate?
That's an interesting question. And I mean, I think there's going to be bias towards sort of the person who I think I am, but also my friends. So I guess take that with also the grain of salt, and also I'm not the admissions department, so maybe not the best sources to go through, but I can give you a sense of, perhaps what I believe some of the values that, a lot of the students came in with. And I think they really centered around, what does it mean to be a good person? And I know that that's a very vague and large encapsulating sort of concept, is what does it mean to be a good person? But I think that's what UCC is about. It's as much as it is putting your son through an extremely rigorous academic program and setting them up for really great success after their final years at UCC, it's really about raising good society, like individuals for society. How can you be a positive contributing member to whatever community you decide to go and involve yourself in after, whether that be in a space of sports or music and art, or something super specific and technical. I think there's a lot of work done to cultivating really good citizens and really good people. We do a lot of different programming that's at the college to help bring that in, and I think those are the types of people that are looked at the most, I believe. And also sort of not necessarily that you have those values in them, but you have the propensity to learn and to explore and to take risks. I think one of the maybe an easy tip off is sort of looking at the IB's sort of seven
learning
sort of learning profiles. I forget, it's been a couple of years, but I think ticking off some of those and showing an initial sort of leaning towards a couple of those is really cool. So risk taker is one that I remember, particularly because I think I identified with those things. But showing that you as a student are willing to embody some of those traits. So someone who's willing to take risks or go deeper into something, or try out an interdisciplinary way of learning, or just opening yourself up to different experiences, as I think probably what they look for correct me if I'm wrong, but from the inside, and also showing that propensity to turn into a good individual. I think everyone can, and everyone has the potential, and just showing the willingness to do that, I think is a good way.
It's a pretty good answer, buddy. And you know, I think that the toughest challenge is how do you measure potential? And I think if we could figure out how to scientifically measure that, we'd be able to sell that and do really well. There's a question here. I was wondering what UCC's program did for learning during COVID. How were the students learning? Let me take a quick crack at just a quick answer from the school, and then maybe Maggie and Mary Lee can speak. We in mid-March, we were advised we had to shut the school down. We had about 9 days to move to an online learning platform, and which went from SK to 12, which I think we did pretty effectively. One of the things that I love about the school is that there was continual feedback. So every week we were asking the boys, asking parents for feedback, and we made slight tweaks to that. We are back in school on campus happily. In the prep school from SK to 7, every boy is back in the school. Every boy could be back in the school. We offered virtual as an option as well for some families who chose that. And in the upper school, boys are in the school one day, not in school the next day. And we've spent about $500,000 over the summer on cameras and microphones for the classrooms so that we could do synchronous learning when boys were not on campus. So it has not been an easy process. There are some things that haven't happened. Matt, the soccer team's not playing. They're practicing, but they're not playing. They're practicing in cohorts. So there are things that we've lost because of COVID. But I think generally my sense is kids are pretty happy at the school. Maggie and Mary Lee, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Maggie, do you want to go ahead first?
Sure. I think I have the experience of both because my two boys, at the first 2 weeks of school, they didn't go back on campus. So they were doing virtual learning. And then 2 weeks later, they went back to school. So I'll go to the virtual learning part. For both the boys, the teachers send them ahead of what that 2 weeks is like. They send them the schedule of every day. They have all they have iPad, computer, all the system available for them already. And then they just need to log on at certain times. And when my older boy, for instance, at the year 7, so basically in the morning, I am a person that I like to sleep in, okay? So usually I sleep until 10, and then my boys will be waking up early, and then they just grab a quick bite, and then they will log on to the computer and do their own thing. So far during that 2 weeks, I will see my older boy logging on and then doing his own work and then submit his assignment and get feedbacks from the teachers. So everything as usual. And then with the younger kid, because they're younger, you can't expect them to log on to the computer the whole day. But what it was is during different time of the day, they have different classes, French, music, art, and also with the younger grades, they have something called the inquiry. So the boys will go into the inquiry and have a group discussions with the teachers online through their computer with the system. Now that they're back to school, I think I would say I'm very, very happy with the fact that not only they are happy to be back to school, they are touched with so far, they're staying safe, but more importantly, I think the school is doing very well from a perspective that they care about them, not only from an academic level, but also from the mental healthness, the well-being level. Give you an example, like what Mary Lee said earlier. Now that we cannot go to the outdoor school called Novel, they bring Novel in on campus. What it is they find a piece of land at school on campus that they actually create different area with different games for the boys to play. My younger one, first day, he came back, he was super excited. He said, Mommy, today I tried archery. Next day, he said, I have a scavenger hunt on bugs. I'm like, okay, bugs? He said, I was scavenger hunting for earthworms and then with snails, etc. So they're learning through playing. And also the school try, because they understand that they're all boys, right? They're active, they need energy, they need to go out. So they have gym every day. They go and run and walk around and do different games, and they're learning. So we're very happy overall with, even though we stuck kind of with the cohort, the COVID situation, but overall, I think they already did what they can, and is so far I've seen is the best thing I've seen. Mary Lee?
Want to add anything, Mary Lee, to that?
No, we're back on full time, and we had a fine experience in the online process in the spring. We had no problems at all.
Great. This group has a lot of questions, so we're going to take a few more questions. It's 6 o'clock. If you have to go, we'll make sure that we put the answers. Heather's telling me that we'll make sure to answer during the Q&A, and you can tune into the recordings afterwards. Or I would also just remind people, if there are questions that you don't feel you've heard answers to, please feel free to reach out to us. I'm very lucky that I most days I see Mary Lee or Maggie out on the avenue. Matt, I don't get to see you very often, but I feel I can ask you questions if we need them as well. So let me try to get through a few more questions here. And Matt, I'm going to maybe direct this one to you. My sons are entering grade 5 and grade 8 next year. How would kids from a co-ed school adjust into an all-boys school?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting question. I actually earlier this summer I was doing a panel for graduating UCC students, and the question they asked me is how is it going to be coming from an all boys environment to going to university at a co-ed environment? So I think it's really interesting to see the switch coming into the college, and I think I'd answer that question by saying, from my own personal experience as well. So kindergarten up to grade 6 was done co-ed. And I didn't really notice like a huge difference for me in the terms of, how I needed to behave or anything like that. Certainly it was an adjustment in the sense that, the people around you are different. The makeup of them is different, but I don't think anything intrinsically changes in sort of the way that I'm taught or, my perspectives on anything or how I participate in class or anything like that. So I think it is something that you notice, and particularly as you get a little older, it becomes a little more apparent, and it's something that you start to consider, and then you get excited because you get to go to university with girls and all that kind of stuff. But I think it for me it wasn't a huge adjustment coming into UCC and switching to an all boys environment. In many ways, I guess, I don't know if it necessarily helped or hurt the development of a community. That's something that I'm not quite sure on. And, I'm not a social science person who can do a study on it. So I'm sure that is something that is studied. But for me, I didn't think it hurt my experience. I don't think I have anything negative to say about the transition at all either. It was something that, I think at such a young age, I'm extremely malleable. And so it wasn't something that I noticed as a huge and stark, contrast between the year before and now, just sitting in a classroom with a bunch of boys. So for me, it wasn't a huge transition.
Let me ask you this, Matt. If you think back to, I don't know, let's say year 10, year 11, year 12, did you know girls? Did you meet girls? Like,
yeah, no, I think that's a very good question, a very real question. So I did. So I think UCC does a lot of great things, and I think COSOT as a whole, so the Conference of Single Sex Ontario something, basically a conglomeration of a bunch of the single sex private schools that are in Toronto and the greater Toronto area. We would have events with each other. So we would have, some sporting events with each other, different exchanges where, sometimes for a couple of hours, a bunch of us would go to a particular school and do a workshop. And I think it's really great that UCC is positioned in a place where we have, BSS down the hall or down the way. We also have really great connections with, Havergal or Branksome. And so we have a lot of, events with those schools. And so you do get exposure to girls in that sense. And I had friends that were at those schools. So it wasn't as if, during my high school years, all my friends and exclusively were male. Certainly I was able to meet some of my peers at female schools through different events, as you get a little older, you have some of the dances at the upper school, and there's a couple of those, and you get to invite a guest from another school, which is really cool as well. So certainly it wasn't such a polarizing thing as it might seem. I think I lived quite far from the school, just like Maggie does. So a lot of the times I was sort of my ability to make these types of friendships was probably diminished in the sense that I always had to plan out when I'm leaving to go home to catch the right train or not get home when it's too dark. But I certainly still had a lot of really great friendships with a lot of great females at a lot of the different high schools in Toronto, and I still continue to have them as friends to this day. And so I don't think it's you're not in like a male only bubble, which I think is really good.
Right, great. There's a question about what's the experience like for someone entering middle years from a non-IB program. I'll just take that one and say, we bring in a number of boys every year into year 5, year 6, year 7. They're coming from non-IB schools. It's a pretty smooth and pretty easy transition. We are a continuum school now, which we weren't when Matt started, but from kindergarten through to year 12, we are full IB, and boys do not have a hard time coming into the IB program. This is an interesting one that I would just open up to any one of the three of you. How does UCC approach the potential negative aspects of a competitive environment?
Yeah, I think I'll start, and I really like that question I saw in the chat, and I was hoping we would get to it. And so this is something that I've talked about a lot as well. UCC is a competitive environment. There's no doubt about it. When you have such great students that excel in a bunch of different things, there will be competition. There's competition on the sports field. There's competition in extracurriculars, like you wouldn't believe it. And there's also competition in academics. But I think it's competition that's extremely helpful, and I think, or healthy, I should say. And I think it was extremely helpful for me in my development because it pushed me to go to new lengths, to challenge myself, to really figure out where I excel, where my shortcomings are, and how do I go and address those things. I think a lot of the time, such a high competitive environment can lead to a lot of negative consequences around mental health and your own sort of growth and things like that. And I think there's a really good balance that's done at the college, and I think it goes on two parts. So teachers are really conscious of this. From the conversations I've had, post UCC, I really come to understand how teachers really did pay attention to the fact that like competition's a real thing. It can actually have serious consequences to people's mental health. And I think the other part of that is our peers. I think everyone understood that it is a competitive environment, and that propagating an environment in which that became toxic is not good for anyone. And I think we all pulled ourselves up together. A lot of the times you create very close-knit group friend circles, and those were the people that I would compete with, but compete at the same time, like compete against but compete with, if that makes sense. So we'd all be pushing ourselves to go further, and I think that extends across from the classroom to the football pitch to the debating room or whatever it is. So I think it was an extremely positive experience for me across the board. And I think, a large part to do with, the way that the teachers must have been trained, or the way that they've come in, the types of individuals that we bring in, and also, and the last thing, and it was alluded to earlier, is the school's attention to mental health. It was something that I think was a huge wave during sort of my last couple of years. We had a couple of students that did a bunch of programs, and I think the school is doing really well with mental health. It's something that, is recently on the block, let's say, although it's been around obviously, forever. But, I remember that there was, I think it's one day, a term, we basically just like had a mental health day, and, we did face masks and everyone chatted, and we had a really cool day where we would just, hang out. And it was good to have those types of resets. And then also, as I spoke about some of the staff and how attentive they are, I think that really complemented that as well.
Right. I'm gonna flip to Maggie and Mary Lee, and I'm gonna put two questions together. How can a parent get involved with the PrEP volunteer organization? And then the other one with that is, how are parents advised of a child's progress throughout the year? Is there ongoing communication between the parents and teachers?
Mary Lee, you want to take the first one, but I'll go to the second one with the, in terms of communication with the teachers, I would say that there are multiple ways. Every year, the school set up multiple settling in conference and freeway conferences, different time where you can set up interviews to have a formal discussion with the teachers. And on top of that, if you have any questions, like before, you can always, before on a non-COVID time, you can always talk to your teacher during the pickup of your boys. Or now, then you can always email your teacher. The teacher has been very, very helpful. The two boys from two different classes, and also the specialists, the teachers teaching subject matters like French and music, they have already tell the parents that anytime you have questions about your kids, you can always let us know, email us, and then they will reply to us within the 48 hours time frame. And if we need, we can always set up a schedule to meet with them online. And on top of that, both boys, the younger grade, we call the primary grade from SK to grade 5, versus the middle grade. 6 to 7, they have different online system where if you need, you can log on and check the stuff that they've been doing and what are the different progress. So you don't need to worry. You get all the information you want.
The teachers are very approachable, and I find that the school is for anything, be it administration or progress or just to chat. Everybody's open to questions and being email, phone calls, or even outside people can talk outside still. So we do that too.
A question for Matt. Have you formed, we're going to think back to when you were at UCC, have you formed relationships with students who boarded at school? And if so, what is the feedback about living on campus?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a very interesting take as well. I had a lot of friends that are boarders, in Seaton's and Wed's house. I'm not sure if I remember, but did they add a third boarding house? I don't remember. Anyway.
No, just two.
Okay. Yeah, I had friends that were at the borders. I sat in the same classes as them. I played on the same sports field as them. The only real difference is that at the end of the day, I went home and they, crossed the sort of quad to their dorms. And I didn't really notice sort of, there's no distinct difference between, boarders and day school kids. And so I think it was a really welcoming sort of environment to boarders. It didn't seem as though they were a clique by themselves, because, whether they're out of province or out of the country or anything like that. So I think it was a really a seamless sort of, transition between being if you're a boarder and if you're a day student. And a really cool case example is I had a friend who was a day student and then transitioned to becoming a boarder just because he lived really far from the college. And honestly, my relationship with him didn't change. It was basically the exact same with him being a day boy who commuted and someone who was a boarder. So I think that, there's no real difference between being a day boy and a boarder in terms of, social cohesion or the friends that you make or anything like that. Obviously, there's day-to-day challenge or differences. I wouldn't say challenges, sorry. Differences such as, getting dinner and breakfast at the dining hall and, you sleep, where you sleep is on campus and all those things. But because of the great facilities, I think there's no real difference. There's no disadvantage of being a boarder. You have everything there for you at all times.
So I actually live on campus and work in our boarding program as well. And, I think one of the great things is we have students from over 25 countries who live on campus and live in our boarding program. And I think that brings a ton of diversity of thought to what goes on in the classroom and adds a real richness. And I often remind families, if you walk down the hall of UCC, you couldn't point to me and say, he's a boarder, he's a day student. They're all wearing uniforms. They all look exactly the same. Folks, it is almost 6:15, and I know that both Mary Lee and Maggie have families to feed. It's 2:15 in the morning for Matt. Well, I've been at the office since 5 o'clock this morning because we work pretty hard at UCC. So to Maggie and Mary Lee, you are amazing volunteers for this school. You are amazing parents at this school. Thank you for sharing your insights today. I know I can always count on you, and I love that about both of you. Matt, you make me feel a bit inadequate. You are an incredible young man. You make us really proud as a school. You are going to go on and do amazing things, and I am so happy that you are an old boy of UCC and you are always going to be a part of this place. So I want to thank you for staying up and staying with us, and hopefully we find some more guys like Matt Jagdeo, because if I had boys, holy cow, I want them to be you. So thank you to the three of you. Thank you to my wonderful colleague Heather, who has been behind the scenes and kept this running and kept this going and kept me on task. And if you need more information, our website has got a lot of great information. There's opportunities for you to connect with us. I do sessions every Wednesday at 4 o'clock if you want more information about the school, and we will be setting up some opportunities for you to hear from parents more and more, because I think they provide a great perspective. So thank you all very much. Have a great Thanksgiving. Be safe, and thanks for considering UCC. Thank you. Maggie and Matt and Mary Lee, can you just hold on 1 second? We'll just let let everyone get off here.